frozen? Oh, there it goes. It's unfrozen now. Alright then, I will continue. This chart is going to be very helpful for you, so I'm going to put a star on it. And I'm going to read through it and highlight some key things to help you when we go over the guided practice and the independent practice. It says an adjective can compare nouns or pronouns. Short adjectives add ER or EST, while long adjectives use more, most, or less and least to compare. So I'm going to highlight that. So short adjectives, you use ER or EST. You add those to the end of the word when you're comparing. But if you have a long adjective, you need to use the words more, most, or less and least to compare. So here's an example sentence. Snowstorms are less forceful than blizzards. So it says then, the word then, we put a star next to it, signals a comparison between snowstorms and blizzards. An adjective forceful is too long to add ER without making the word difficult to pronounce, because if we said forceful, that wouldn't make any sense. So that's why you have to add the word less to make the sentence make more sense. Here's another sentence or example. Snow was cleared more quickly on the main roads than on the secondary roads in Merrimack County. And actually, this does not go with that sentence. So right here, you see this word right here, quickly. You can't say cleared quicklier, because that in this sentence it doesn't make any sense. So we have to add the word more, quickly, to make that sentence make more sense. All right, the next part says an adverb. So this whole section right here is about adjectives, and this whole section down here is about adverbs. An adverb can be used to compare actions. Short adverbs, not ending in ly, add er or est. Long adverbs use, and we're going to highlight this too. So short adverbs, you use er or est if the word does not end with ly. If it's a long adverb, use more, most, less, least to compare the actions. Example, snowstorms occur less frequently in Alabama than in Vermont. The adverb quickly describes how often snowstorms occur. Less is used to compare the frequency of snowstorms in the states. Snow was cleared more quickly on the main roads than in the secondary roads in Merrimack County. Quickly is an adverb that describes how the snow was cleared on the main roads compared to the secondary roads in Merrimack County. So if you notice here, we're adding these extra words to make that sentence make more sense when we're using adverbs. Do not, I'm going to highlight this, do not add er or est at the end of an adjective or adverb when more or most, less or least is used. So you will not add, you don't add er or est when you use these keywords right here. So here's a correct sentence. The strongest winds blew across the lake. This is incorrect. The most strongest winds blew across the lake. Because we already have a comparing word right there, we don't need to add that extra word. Here's another set of correct and incorrect. The most frigid weather happens in January. That's the correct sentence. Incorrect. The frigidest weather happens in January. That is incorrect. And this little box right here is really important. It says to remember, use less and least in the same manner as more and most before longer adjectives and adverbs. So this lesson is going to be a lot easier than the previous lessons. Now, Monday's lesson, which is today, is a lot easier than last week's lessons, and this lesson is also quite easy. The most important thing is when you're reading these sentences, read them out loud to yourself, because then you might be able to find the mistakes or decide which sentence makes more sense. So number 1 says, underline the correct adjective or adverb form. The biting winds during the storm were the harmfulest or most harmful. So as you're listening to me say the sentence, you probably can figure out harmfulest does not make any sense. So we are going to underline most harmful. So when you read the sentence, it makes more sense. The biting winds during the storm were the most harmful. That makes the most sense. Number 2, frostbite is less common in Georgia than in Minnesota, or frostbite is least common in Georgia than in Minnesota. Now those ones, they're close, but if you notice when I said less common in the sentence, it made the most sense. Frostbite is less common in Georgia than in Minnesota, so less common is correct. Number 3, the blizzard of 1866 was one of the toughest storms ever, or the blizzard of 1866 was one of the most tough storms ever. And in this case, toughest is the correct word, because most tough in that sentence did not make sense. All right, the next part says, write the correct form of the adjective or adverb. So they have the adjective or adverb in parentheses in blue, and then we have to decide how we're going to change the word to make it the most sense in that sentence. So the first snowfall was something beautiful than the last. Now, there's actually 2 words you could put in front of beautiful to make that sentence make sense. You could say the first snowfall was more beautiful. Or, and this one is also correct, you could say less beautiful. Excuse me, it's a little hard to write sideways. There we go. So either one of those would make the sentence make sense. The first snowfall was more beautiful than the last, or the first snowfall was less beautiful than the last. Either one of those makes that sentence correct. All right, the next one says January is the snowy month in Jackson, Wyoming. With snowy, ends with Y, we are just going to change the ending of this word to make the sentence make sense. January is the snowiest month in Jackson, Wyoming. So we're going to drop the Y and add I-E-S-T. There you go. January is the snowiest month in Jacksonville, Wyoming. So when you're working through this lesson, refer back to this chart. This will be helpful. Remember to read the sentence out to yourself, because if you're reading it and it doesn't make sense, it's most likely that you either have the wrong form of the word or you just need to add that word part, either less, least, most, or more. All right, so for independent practice, this should be pretty easy, so I'm not gonna go over this. You're doing the same thing. Read the sentence, underline the word in the parentheses that makes the most sense. The bottom part might be the little bit more, or it might be a little trickier, because you have to figure out what form of the word. You might have to change it, or you might just have to add one of those words to the beginning of it to make that sentence make sense. And then the apply and write, you don't have to worry about that. All right, make sure you contact me if you have any questions or concerns, and I'd be more than happy to help you.